All right. Welcome back to Practify, the podcast where we go inside the minds of private practice owners who've successfully scaled their practice and are open to sharing the strategies and mindset behind their growth. Today's guest is someone who's completely rewritten the rulebook for dietitians. Amy Plano is a seven-figure practice owner, the founder of the Reimbursement Dietitian, and a nationally recognized expert when it comes to building insurance-based nutrition businesses. She's coached hundreds of registered dietitians, scaled her own multi-practitioner team, and done it all while being personally mentored by business giants like Alex Hormozy and Dan Martell. She's sharp, no BS, and deeply respected. And today she's here to share exactly how she cracked the code. Amy, welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
Of course. Amy, you've quite clearly built this incredible brand and a seven-figure business, but that's not where things really started. So I want to go back to the version of you before the wins, before the team, before the reimbursement dietitian. So take us back to the beginning. What did the early days of your practice actually look like before things started clicking?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so crazy, with social media. So when I had started my practice, right, social media wasn't a thing. And so it's so interesting now because I think as consumers, we see everybody's highlight reel, right? And it's the beginning of my practice, the beginning of my career was like a flaming dumpster fire of shit because, you're trying to do all of the things as a practice owner. And essentially, in the beginning of my practice, I was probably working 3 or 4 jobs. And so I was side hustling in my practice while I was a full-time professor. I was part-time at Yale, and doing as many consultation jobs as I could. So you're so spread thin that you kind of just do your best to survive. So the beginning of my practice, it's frightening to think about what it actually looked like compared to now. So I think it was an entirely different beast back then too, more so because I was an insurance-based practice out of the gates, and I also didn't know what I was doing, and nobody else was doing it. So there's like that concept of 0 to 1, right? They say in the world of startups, there was nobody asked for advice. So I think in the very beginning, it was very lonely. It was very overwhelming. And I was essentially kind of creating the playbook as I went. So it wasn't super fun.
Can you paint a picture of your financial reality at that time?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the financial reality of any registered dietitian coming out of school. So registered dietitians have to do anywhere from a 4 to 5 year undergrad program. And then they have to do a 12-month unpaid internship. And it's not like an internship where you just shadow. It's a full-time 40+ hour a week job where you go. And so the financial picture was I was coming directly out of my internship when I started my practice. And this was kind of my second academic track. I had done 2 years of medical school before I dropped out of medical school to come back to become a dietitian. And so like my academic trajectory was like a decade before I became a dietitian. And so I had racked up significant student loans, right? And so registered dietitians and generally in that time frame in like mid 2005, 2006, we were making $33 an hour. Right. And so I had probably $50,000 or $60,000 worth of, student loan debt, if not more. So, so the financial situation of the practice in the beginning is 100% bootstrapped. Then the nice thing about running an insurance-based practice, like there's not a lot of startup costs. But you have to almost work like 80 hours a week in another job in order to support this side time hustle. So it was tremendously stressful. Yeah. And it's like but with that all being said, I'm super grateful for that opportunity because when you learn to play with less, you never forget where you came from. And even though now I'm able to charge $1,000 plus an hour, I never, ever, ever forget making $33 an hour, having, all of this education behind me. So I think from a financial standpoint, it's only as stressful as you make it. And what I mean by that is like, I knew eventually, things would level out, the practice would get busy. But in the beginning, I think everybody has the same struggles. Yeah. Yeah.
Would you say there was like a specific moment where you hit a wall and realized that you're going to need to change things?
I think there was most days I wanted to bash my head on a wall, you know what I mean? Because I think it's like a typical day for me for probably the first 5 to 8 years of my career was like, I'd get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'd be at the gym by 4:20. I'd work out with a trainer from 5 to 6. I'd get dressed, go to the hospital, do my full-time job, leave the hospital, at 3 or 4 o'clock, and then either go to academia to teach full time or to my private practice. And so, I just think it was such a different mindset in the beginning that, I had to know in my heart of hearts and I had to believe in myself that all of this was going to be worth it for something. Right. And so I really believed that I had something that was really amazing. It just was going to take some time. And I don't know if that's like a different mindset than my predecessors or people after me, but like I was never afraid of putting in the work. And there's always that level of uncertainty that it might not work out. But I was also betting on myself, and I would bet on myself any day of the week. So if I lost everything right now, I'd be upset for a second, but I would know in my heart of hearts, I have the skill set to rebuild it. So, I think in the beginning, like there was never really an aha moment. There was, I'm going to do this by hard work. Like nothing was ever given to me. Like there was no concessions. And if something could go wrong in a business, it certainly went wrong, not just once, probably twice for me. So I don't think there was any aha moment. There was actually more of a strategy in an intentional like direction that like I knew that the day would come when I could get rid of one job. And so like slowly I let go of first my role in clinical, then my academic role. And then in 2014, I went full time into my practice. So I am not a fan as a mentor or as a coach of, I know some coaches are like, just throw you off like the side of a building and want you to fly. I really believe as adults, like we have financial responsibilities. And so like it wasn't an option, for me not to work. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't think there was an aha moment because I think it was all intentional and building up to the point when I felt financially secure to kind of take that leap. But that was after 7 years of like hustling hard. Like, you know what I mean? And I loved all my jobs. I had no problem working for other people. For me, being an entrepreneur is not, I prefer, especially in this season that I'm in, I would love to work for somebody else and make the money that I make. Like I don't have a problem. It's not like a pride thing. I just like to make a lot of money. You know what I mean? And so I know that that's not an option, but no, I didn't have like an aha moment in terms of like, but because I didn't actually really, some people say they don't like their jobs. I love my job as a clinical dietitian. Like nobody was like beating me in the basement. Like, yeah, it was just it. And that's what made it hard, because a lot of dietitians, like our offices are usually right next to the morgue. I don't think most people know that, but it's like, I love my job. And I also really think, even though I'm an entrepreneur at heart, I think those 7 years that I went hard were really important in terms of like, I was exposed to opportunities that I would never have if I just went into private practice. So while I love the concept of private practice, I, number one, don't think it's for everybody. And number two, really believe that you have to have some weight under the bar, I think, before you make that transition. So yeah, so like I was very excited to make that transition into private practice. But I also had put in the work and I was grateful for the opportunities I was exposed to when working for somebody else. I don't think that everybody looks at it like that, but oh gosh, like it's like somebody paid for all my training. Like, you know what I mean? Somebody paid for my health insurance. Yeah, it was a different beast.
And what would you say the first small win was that gave you a taste of what was actually possible?
Yeah, and I think you have to remember that when I was doing this, I did not have a baseline. And so like, and what I mean by that is because I had always worked like a 40 plus hour week because I had to, I didn't know what a normal load in a patient, in a private practice was, right? Because nobody was doing what I was doing. And so I think probably the moment was when, I was seeing, in addition to my two or three other jobs, probably like 30 patients a week in my practice. And I just thought that was part time because when I worked at the hospital, we'd see like 8 to 10 patients a day or more than that. So I think for me, like that little tiny win, and I kept on not wanting to believe it. Like, I'm like, you know what I mean? Because you always think the other shoe is going to drop. I think that's like the entrepreneur self sabotage. It kind of keeps you safe, right? And you keep on like projecting when something bad's going to happen next. But I think for me, it was when I started to really have like a consistent patient flow. But for anybody listening, that was like 30 patients per week on top of my other two or three regular jobs. Because I think most dietitians or practitioners go all in on their practice when they don't have the patient load to support it. Like, and so it's like what I am finding in my space is nobody wants to work and everybody wants to make a shit ton of money, but nobody wants to do the clinical side, which is where we make the money. So for me, I think like kind of that small win, was being able to pay off like $30,000 or $40,000 worth of those student loans. And then only once I felt like a sigh of relief off my chest, really realizing that what I really had was actually probably a full-time job on top of my other two. So the small wins were like feeling financially stable for the first time in a really long time. Yeah.
And would you say there were any specific mindset shifts that you needed to make in order to take this jump in
Yeah.
your practice?
I am a firm believer that practitioners who are successful, it's 100% driven by their mindset. Because there's that saying, like, you think you can or you think you can't, you're right either way. And from the moment I graduated from my internship, I knew that I was capable of more. And I was very vocal with, my employers. Not one person would ever tell you if you spoke to them that I did not tell them that I was not going to build an empire. And so I was very clear, even when I took the job at Yale, which is where I did my internship, that, that this was a temporary job and I was going to give it 110%, but like I was not going to be a career clinical dietitian. And so that ruffled a lot of feathers because the mindset in my space is, you do this, you do that, and then you work at a hospital for 20 or 30 years. You become a clinical manager. You get another dollar per hour and maybe another credential after your name. But like that was never my mindset. With that being said, I think there's a lot of amazing practitioners that work in that space that we are very fortunate to have. But like my mindset coming out of the gates was I was capable. I knew that my education had trained me emphatically for something bigger than what I was doing at the time. I did not realize how big it would actually become, but I had no doubt that whatever came my way, I would be able to successfully tackle based on the mindset of how we're reared as dietitians and just how like rigorous our academics are. Like I just knew that we are all destined for more. And it was just that mindset, because if you do not believe you are destined for more, you're going to continue to get exactly what you put out. So I cannot enforce like the concept of believing in yourself first and foremost. And I think that's really hard, especially in the beginning, because you don't have the evidence, right? Like you don't have the evidence that you are an amazing practitioner. And so you have to I think you have to look for those small wins and really recognize and celebrate those. But I think it's all mindset. And I think it all comes back to understanding that there will be challenges ahead and they're going to be pretty big. But it's nothing that you're not capable of doing. So for me, I understood that, and I knew, and I think this is very different. Like, I anticipated it was going to be like the most turbulent road. So it's like I had tempered my expectations. So when things fell apart, which they did several times throughout my career, I threw myself on the ground for a while and then just pulled myself together. And I was like, okay, like, it's like, it doesn't matter how you feel, like, it's like, you just got to keep on going. So yeah, I do. I really believe that if you look at the most successful people in any space, the main thing that they have that other people don't have is they have a strong mindset in which they believe and bet on themselves any day of the week. You know what I mean? Like, they believe in their services so much and the ability for them to change people's lives that, like, that is where they derive their worth from, but no, I had undeniable belief in myself, because I knew no matter what, it was going to be like scrappy and it was going to be ugly, but like I would get it done, so. But yeah, I think the mindset piece is really hard. And I think as somebody who mentors people in our space, even the people that I know are going to be successful, like, I can pick them out of a lineup just based on their mindset. They don't believe in themselves. You know what I mean? Until they believe in themselves and what they're capable of doing, they're never going to be successful, unfortunately. But yeah.
But from the sound of things, it seems like you're grateful for the hard times as well, not only the bad times.
Oh, 100%.
Or not.
I have no regrets. Like, the trajectory and the messiness of every single aspect of my business, my personal life, super messy. But it's like, that's when you grow, right? It's like, you don't grow when you're comfortable. Like, you grow when your back's against the wall, right? And you have no other choice and you have to make decisions. But I am eternally grateful for the struggle. And I tell people all the time, it never feels good while you're in it and you want it to end. But like, that's not how you get better, right? Like, that's not how you get stronger. Like, if you continue to do the same shit at the gym, like, I was just down at the gym before this podcast, and I was looking at this guy who I was just thinking about, like, he looks the same, and I've lived in this building for 3 years and I just don't think he challenges himself enough. You know what I mean? So it's the same concept of, like, if we want to get better at anything, we have to be really willing to be uncomfortable. And, like, to your point, like, yes, lots of mistakes, and like, yeah, but I'm grateful for that. Like, every day I'm grateful for those. I'm grateful for those probably more so than the successes. Yeah.
So on that note, if you could go back in time and whisper something into the ear of Amy Plano in her first year of private practice, knowing what you obviously know now, what would you say?
Yeah, I think I would say that, like, I think it would be kind of cliche, and it would say, like, it's like nothing comes easy, and like everything's going to take longer than you anticipate. And I think that, like, if you want to build an empire, which has always been my goal, I think you have to play the long game. And I think, like, historically, we are all kind of in survival mode, both financially and mentally, that it's hard to play the long game. And so for the people that can sustain the pain the longest, there is generally a payoff at the end. And so I think if I were to go back and tell myself, I would kind of be more, and this is how this is the angle that I also coach for and mentor for, like, kind of when you ask this question, is like, showing people that there's massive potential in our space and in our field, but also understanding that it's going to take a while to get there. And like, you have to be okay with that anything on a long enough a time horizon, right? Like, you're going to be successful at. But most dietitians, most practitioners, right? Like, they play the short game. They play, like, what is, like, my year to date, like, for quarter one. Like, they're not, look, I always say to people is like, my goal, and I think that my goal now, and I say this out loud, and I probably didn't know this then, but I tell practitioners now, like, your goal is not that your practice is successful this year, right? You want your practice to be successful decades from now, right? So I started my practice in 2007, right? And so it's like, I didn't realize that should have been my goal at the time, but my goal should have been one on longevity and improvement in quality. right? Improvement in patient outcomes, improvement in the dietitians that we have on our team. So like, I think I think like I would go back and whisper in my ear, like, buckle up, you know what I mean? And like being okay that if you want something, you have to put in the work. And I think like people don't understand the time commitment that it takes in order to get that. So yeah, so kind of cliche is like kind of saying like, yeah, it's like nothing good comes like without hard work and a long enough time horizon. Yeah.
Amy, you've quite clearly built your practice around insurance, something most practitioners either avoid or flat out warn against.
Yeah.
What would you say made you go in that direction when most people were running the opposite direction?
Absolutely. So lots of reasons. So like I am like I think like anybody that knows me is like I am deep rooted in like core values and like my goal. So when I first started working in my practice, I exclusively worked with eating disorders and Division 1 athletes. And so like so people say I'm really, really niche now as like the reimbursement dietitian, like you can't get any niche more. Like I probably was actually more niche and this is like before niching was cool and the riches were in the niches per se, whatever people say. Like I knew none of that. But so I was super niche. And at the time, the people that we were seeing in our practice, like we have more protection now in the United States for mental health parity laws, but having an eating disorder is like a really expensive thing to have. It's like more expensive than like a Bentley, you know what I mean, or a Bugatti. Like it's like, you know what I mean? And so in the beginning, like parents had to outsource and pay thousands of dollars for treatment. And I thought if I could just be like a glimmer of hope, even though I had no idea what I was doing, if I could decrease the cost of barrier to my services, then that would be a win for everybody. And just to be very clear, like I had no idea what I was doing, like no idea. I didn't know my arm from my asshole, kind of how we say that. But it's like I knew nothing. And so, but it kind of went back to that mindset is like I was betting everything on myself, right? And so it's like, I don't think I charged one patient in the beginning. And there was like multiple years where I had no idea what I was doing. But I wanted to increase accessibility to care, which has always been like one of my core values. Because I feel like in the United States, dietitians beat their chest as being the nutrition experts. But without accessibility to care, it doesn't help anybody. So I really wanted to create a model, and I didn't know it at the time if it was even feasible, but I was willing to go all in on it and say, how can I make the biggest impact, but also make an income, right? Because, you know, one of the things like most practitioners don't talk about is they don't talk about money. Money is always a big tenet and driver for me, for lots of different reasons, but you can't just be altruistic and want to, you know what I mean? I think that's great. But for me, it was about making the biggest impact, and increasing the accessibility to my services. Once again, be very clear, like there were no protocols. Like I didn't even know what the forms were, but I was like, I'll just figure this out as I went along, you know? And then remember too, that I also had 2 or 3 backup jobs as well. So it's like, I was able to experiment and kind of write the playbook because I intentionally didn't take that big leap into private practice. But yeah, for me, it's really, really important in terms of accessibility to care. And then that same core value flips over to reimbursement dietitian and coaching because we spend 98% of our time creating free content, right? Because we want nutrition education for dietitians in this space to be equally as accessible. So for me, it was more about a core value and one that I was not willing to, you know, to just like put aside. So yeah, I'm super grateful that, you know, I went for it because now I think it's really helpful for other dietitians, but I had no idea what I was like. I was not like, I'm not a snowflake. It's super important that people know that. Like, I don't like, you know what I mean? It's like, I just like trial and error, like I'd sit in my office because I would see patients on Saturday from like, I'd see patients 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. to like 2 p.m. And then I sit in my office from like 3 to 5, 3 to 6 until I figured out how to bill. You know what I mean? So yeah, it was a lonely road, but yeah, I was able to figure it out. But no, it was more just based on like, how can I help? And how can I serve people at the highest level given all my training. Yeah.
What do you think most dietitians fundamentally misunderstand about insurance-based
Yeah.
models?
Yeah, so like we have kind of a pretty broken academic model where like myself included was like told to run from private practice and to run from insurance. And this concept in the United States is nothing is covered, the reimbursement rates are crappy. It's really hard to do it. And so it's like the majority of my time as a content creator is like unwinding this false narrative that we have been told. And I have left positions, pretty high positions in academia, when people have told me or disagreed with me that I am being crazy or foolish, because the old archy of kind of our space is that narrative is that's what we've been told, that's what we've been taught. And so it's not surprising the younger generation feels the same way because this is rooted in our education. So no, like any, health discipline, like nobody's taught about how to create a business, right? Like I think I had it like where I went to school, like I think I had like a class on like agricultural like economics. Like that was my business class. You know what I mean? And so it's like, we are very ill-equipped as dietitians. We are very good at the clinical aspect. So but yeah, the narrative is there's no money, it's super difficult, you're never going to get paid, and if you do get paid, it's going to be really crappy. So it's like, and like I said, the main thing is that nothing is covered. So it's like those, I think those are ingrained in people's like in like their medulla. Like it's etched pretty deep. And so like I'm not surprised when people say these things to me. Because I was told the same things. Yeah.
Yeah. So on that note of narratives and these massive misconceptions, I mean, I hear it myself so often. Insurance means more admin, lower pay, difficult patients.
Sure.
How true is that in your experience?
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth to it, but it's like you have to choose your heart, right? And so, it's like to me, an insurance-based practice is like it's very scalable and it's very sustainable. And so if we speak to the sustainable side first, is in the United States, everybody has coverage, right? And so it's like you have to have insurance in the United States. And like there are very few insurances that do not cover nutrition. And if you are overweight or you have cardiovascular disease or you have hypertension or you have metabolic syndrome or prediabetes, which is 99% of the United States population, you also have unlimited visits. So like you are rewarded you know what I mean, for being overweight and being obese. And so I work in weight management now. I no longer work in eating disorders. And so I don't want to say it's like taking candy from a baby, but it's like one of the biggest problems I think for private practices as a whole is increasing demand, right? And so like, it's like we have massive demand, not only because do we have a population that's super unhealthy, right, on some level, all of these patients have insurance. They all pay pretty high premiums. Even like our version, I live in Connecticut and we have Medicaid, which is, for people that can't afford insurance. And even that covers nutrition and it covers it better. It reimburses better than some of our commercial plans. So, there's there's coverage pretty much for everything, whether or not there's a cost share for the patient, meaning like a copay or a deductible, that is determinant on how like what you're seeing the patient for. But that's the same, it follows the same rules as going to see the doctor or an orthopedic or anything like that. So this concept first and foremost that nothing is covered. The piece about patients being challenging, absolutely. But I think like in any space, we teach people how we want to be treated. And so like if you allow bad behavior from your patients, so like we collect a credit card, we cancel, like we have taught like the systems that we have in place because I have been burned, remember, like I was doing this all by myself. And so I had to create systems that protected me. And so you have to give us a credit card. You have to fill out all your forms. If you do not fill out all your forms and give us all of the things we ask, then we cancel out your appointment. We do it in a nice way, but you want to teach people that even though they are getting a free service on some level for most people, they still have to have something vested, right? And so if like you don't show up for your appointment, like we're going to charge you the full amount. I'm not going to charge you $10. I'm going to charge you the full amount because my time is worth the same amount whether or not you chose to show up or not. So I think that, but I think that like the human side of dealing with patients is the same whether you're cash based or not, right? Because I don't know how to say this in a nice way, but like people suck, you know what I mean? And like you're going to have really amazing people. Like, I'm going to tell you sincerely, 95% of the patients that we service in my practice are incredible human beings. The other 5% are very challenging, you know what I mean? But you have to put systems in place that does not allow these people to behave badly. But I think a lot of those, yes, it does require more administration, but you can kind of choose your heart, right? If you're a cash-based practice, people always say to me, well, I charge $300 a session. And I was like, how's that working out for you? Like, you know what I mean? Like who has 300 extra, you know what I mean? And so you can charge whatever you want. The insurance companies will pay you your contracted rate. In the United States, it's very, very wide in terms of what we get reimbursed. And so I always just use it on an hourly basis, although not all sessions are hourly. Our lowest payer in my state is $150 per hour. Our highest payer is $192 per hour. That varies significantly because if I go to the West Coast, the same service for that $150 on my low, by that same payer, will pay $360. I think even more. So there's some big states in the United States that pay big bucks. But I always root myself and say, okay, cool. Like, yes, it is more paperwork. Yes, you need to do X, Y, and Z. But like, would you rather make $33 an hour? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you have to choose your version of hard and what you're willing to tolerate. And so it's like, I'm always fascinated when people will say to me, yeah, well, I'm a cash-based insurance-based practice. And to me, I'm a cash-based nutrition-based practice. And I can't help but think to the back of my head, I feel like that's kind of gross. Like, you know what I mean? Your patients have coverage. Like, why are you being such a pussy? Like, just like man up and learn how to do it. You know what I mean? Because like, to me, it's like saying like, okay, like I only accept cash. Therefore I can only work with people that can afford my services. So yeah, I do agree that there are significant real barriers, not just like mindset barriers. Yes, it does require more work. Yes, you cannot charge what you want to charge. Yes, in certain states you do need referrals, but I did all of this when I had like 65 jobs and like I was still like, you know what I mean? I still didn't die. For most people, this is their full-time job. And if like they have the right systems in place, it like runs like clockwork. You know what I mean? So I think that that's where people get it wrong, is that they want to be successful, but they're not willing to put the systems in place they need to do. But yes, I agree with you. There is, I would never lie. I've been insurance-based longer than any other dietitian on this planet. And it has certainly come, with the positives, but it has certainly come with the negatives as well. Yeah. Yeah, but I wouldn't trade it once again as somebody like, during COVID when everything changed with telehealth. There's been times in my practice where like a telehealth code with our biggest payer stopped paying. And so even though it was the insurance's fault, we didn't get paid for like 6 months on that particular claim. And I have 10 dietitians that I need to pay on somebody that we usually bill for 400 plus visits per month to that payer. But that, to be honest with you, I don't see that as an insurance issue. I see that as a practice issue, meaning we were fine because I had 6 months of, you know what I mean? I had planned appropriately in the event that something like that happened. So I think a lot of the issues that people talk about with insurance can also be mitigated by systems and, like a good business plan per se. But no, they're definitely real. Like, you know what I mean? Like in terms of like, I always say like, it's not always like rainbows and unicorns and pink glitter. It would be amazing if it was, but it's just not how business works. Yeah.
And on that note, you touched on the fact that when you were getting started, you actually had to learn to bill for yourself.
Mhm.
When you actually started taking insurance, like what was that learning curve like?
Oh, it's like massive because it like was like one of my 5 jobs, right? Like it's like I almost had it like it was like the equivalent of like going to like in the United States we have like I think it's an associate's degree like in billing and coding, right? And so I had been working outpatient at the hospital, so I had learned some of the billing and coding because like we had to drop the charges on, but yeah, it went down like this. It would be as simple as like I had like a notebook and then like if the claim I would put down how I submitted the claim, um, print it out, and then if it got denied, because a lot of times they won't really tell you what the specific denial is, like okay, cool. Like, what should I do next? Well, let me change this thing. And then I would change this thing and make a note of it. It would get paid. And then I would kind of learn that that was the new rule. So I would say I spent most of my Saturdays for the first, like, probably like first, like 3 years, you know what I mean? Like, kind of learning how to bill because I don't say this to be a martyr, but there was nobody else doing this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was no other private practice dietitians, let alone anybody who was an insurance based practice. And so it was like, I couldn't even, I had a bunch of friends who were like physicians, but the way that physicians bill is entirely different. And most of my friends who are physicians, they have a whole billing team. They have like 6 people that work in their office. And so there was a significant learning curve. But once again, I don't have any regrets because like every single mistake that I learned, now when a dietitian shows me something, I'm like, fix that, fix that. Like I know, like it's like I always say, like I'm like the insurance claim whisperer, like because I made all of those mistakes. So the learning curve was significant, but now like nobody, like we have so much more resources out there for dietitians that they don't have to. If dietitians struggle, it's a choice. It's not because they have to, you know? Yeah, but significant because like I went to school to it's like my undergrad degree is in biochemistry. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's not like in business. I have no formal training in business or billing, Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Yeah.
So I want to talk real numbers for a second.
Yeah.
Once everything was going and smooth sailing
Yeah.
eventually, what
Sure.
kind of revenue
Sure.
did your insurance-based model actually start generating?
Yeah, so it's like for a full-time dietitian, like when when we spec things out, so it's a matter of how many people you have on your team, right? And I would say like a typical dietitian by herself, like or himself, like top line, which obviously is different than a profit. I mean, like you can be making anywhere from 130 to $170,000 per year, seeing probably 25 to 30 hours of patients per week. You know what I mean? And so like so it's like in the beginning, I started hiring in 2009, before I was even full time, but I had known in my head what I was bringing in per hour and what I needed to make, And so in order for me to leave one job and go to the other, I had to be able to make up for lost revenue, but not just make up for lost revenue. There had to be earning potential above and beyond, because for most people, like you don't want to go into private practice just to give yourself a harder job, right? You want to go into private practice and dollars and monies to make more money. Like I don't want a job like working for myself. I'd rather go work at Target. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, so it's like I think you can expect. And so the way that I look at it from a numbers and cents standpoint is when people invest in a coaching program, say like mine, and say they're making $55,000 a year. It's like by giving me, 4,600 for my coaching program, I can almost double or triple your revenue. You know what I mean? And so if you do the things that I ask you to do, it's like you can get like a 2 to 3x, huge return on that. So I think top line, you could go, as high as you're willing to work, right? And if you're in a state where you have really good rates, Connecticut's aren't awesome. They're not horrible, but they're not awesome. So I would say for every dietitian top line, full time at 25 patient hours a week, and you depending upon your state, like 120 to 170 probably. And then you just flesh that out as you build out your team, and you're able to pay those dietitians a good salary. You know what I mean? So if the typical dietitian's making $55,000 a year, like you're able to give them 70, 80, 90 with full-time benefits and still be making money in your practice. So, I think a lot of times I use the number for people to play out is like bare minimum $100 an hour, right? Top line, right? So we're not talking about profit. So if somebody's making an average of $100 per hour seeing patients, it's like, I like to work in reverse. And I say to somebody without being like, grandiose and like silly, like, how much money do you need to make? Because people will say, I want to make X, Y, and Z. And they're like, I'm only willing to see 15 patients a week. And I'm like, you're shit out of luck. Like you need to, like, what I mean? That's not how the world works. So, so I think there's tremendous potential, to make a lot of money and significantly more money than you would. But like an average dietitian in a clinical situation is making about $55,000 a year, where they can leverage their time much more effectively working for themselves. As you know, adding the caveat, yes, it is a lot of work. So you work your butt off for that 150, but there's significant additional payoffs. Yeah.
If someone's listening who's 100% cash-based right now,
Yeah.
when would you say it makes sense to actually consider adding insurance?
For sure. Yeah. And I think like the question, I think it comes back to kind of core values. And so when I say this sincerely from the bottom of my heart, the people that I work with in my coaching programs, I have probably about 220 active coaching clients right now. I would tell you, like, these are people that are just good effing humans. And it's like, I would give the world for them. And I do. But it's like, they're like special people. And so it's like, for somebody considering going, I often really feel too, it's like, if that model's working for you and you're not vested in your heart in an insurance-based model, like, I'm not sure that that's the direction you go. You know what I mean? What we're seeing, which is like, lights me up equally at the same time, is when I came into the space, like, I was like one of one, right? And so this side of insurance has exploded. And so like Facebook pages where like there was like 30 of us, now there's like 8,000 people, you know what I mean? And so I think what's happening now in the cash-based space is, right, like, I don't know how to say this in a nice way, like, but you're getting like outnumbered, right? And so like, even if you're the best dietitian in your specific niche, there's going to be like 100 for every one of you that takes insurance, right? And so it's like, now, I hate to say that dietitians are like, I'm not really one for dietitians competing with one another, but you see what I'm saying? And so like, but I would say if your heart is not in it, because like you and I have been talking about, it is a mindset switch. It is a model switch. It is a learning curve. It is a different revenue cycle, right? Because when you're a cash-based dietitian, you collect cash, like your accounts receivable is generally going to be jacked. But guess what? Guess what happens in a cash-based practice? Well, it's like you collect all that money 1 month. And if you're servicing people on a 3-6 month program, right? It's like month number 2, right? It's like, there's no income coming in. So it's like, I think number 1, your heart has to be in it and behind it, because if it's not, you're not going to be willing to endure like the curve, the extra, you know what I mean? So, and like the same question that I ask my patients, I work in weight management. I always say, if somebody says to me, well, I'm doing carnivore, keto, like paleo. And I'll say to them, like, how's that working for you? You know what I mean? You're here in my office and you're grossly over, you know what I mean? And so I would say that to the dietitian is like, how is that model working for you and serving you? And if it's serving you fine and financially you feel super comfortable with it, like, if it's not broke, then don't fix it. Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like, I really think your heart has to be in this, because there's tremendous potential, but there's also, there's some short-term pain. And I do not think in my space that many, like, I think we have a pretty wimpy population these days. Like, I don't think we have a lot of dietitians willing to endure. You know what I mean? Because I see them, people can't even follow directions. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it's crazy. Like, I just posted something in a public Facebook page, and I said, do not post your email below. I will send out an evite. And then like 22 people, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think it takes a lot of, it takes a very intentional mindset to accept insurance. And I do not think most dietitians are capable of it. And I say that as somebody who loves registered dietitians. It's just like, yeah, it's like you got to be in it. And I don't think all cash-based dietitians are. And I'm not also here to, you know what I mean? I want people doing this who like share the same mindset, because it's not good for anybody, including their patients. Like, if you have hostility towards your patients because you cannot figure out how to bill, like, that's a you issue. That's not an insurance issue. Yeah.
So I know that we've touched on mindset, but other than that, obviously you've helped hundreds of dietitians build insurance-based practices. What would you say separates the ones who thrive from the ones who stay stuck and just overwhelmed?
Yeah, I think so I spend a lot of time sitting here in my office trying to figure out, like, why are certain dietitians successful and what makes them? And I think I know this sounds very, very self-explanatory, but we live in a culture where things are done for you, right? We like impulse, like Chat GPT. Like, I think like the dietitians who are successful are the ones who can critically think through problems and not give up until they get the answer. Because I think what I see in my space is, I don't know if that's just I don't know. I went to school so long ago. I'm old. I feel like my education like created me to be different than what I'm seeing in the new generation. In just the fact that people do not follow a simple direction, like, please do not post your email, and then it's like people just live in this impulse driven world where they can't follow directions. And so if you cannot follow directions, that's not even critical thinking, right? That's like, Maslow's hierarchy of law. It's like zero, like law zero. But that's what I mean. I think the dietitians, like, they number one, they temper their expectations. And I really try to do that when I am on a discovery call or a sales call. I try to actually like not scare people away, but I also want them to know what they're signing up for, because it's really important for me when somebody works for me that I'm not selling them a bag of shit. Like, I want them to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is most important. So I think their ability to critically think, and to not put their hand up before they've thought it through. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think I know it sounds so silly. That's like a lost art. Like, we have Facebook pages, Instagrams, like people I don't even know will send me like patient sensitive information with EOBs and like, can you tell me what to do? I'm like, I don't even know who you are. Like, what do you think you should do? And so I think part of my job as a mentor is to get people thinking again. Because I think most people are capable at a higher level. They just want what's easy. And so like, I think that like the dietitians who are successful, and we have a ton of them in my coaching programs, like, they're the types of dietitians that go into a Facebook page, they search, right? They search to see if the question's been asked. And then they'll say, hey, Aim, I totally searched. This is what I think I saw. This is what I'm leaning towards. What do you think? Right? Because it's like, that to me is like, I have so much respect for that. Versus somebody who goes into a Facebook page, posts anonymously some silly question that literally has been posted 6 hours before. You know what I mean? So, to me, I can spot somebody who's going to be successful a mile away. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and like, to me, I'm just laughing because I'm doing this free webinar that I'm talking about. And it's like, I told people not to put their emails in. Like, I know I've said this twice, like, I'm just going to knock them right off the list if they register. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like the stuff that we're going to talk about is pretty high level. Like, you know what I mean? And so if you cannot, you know what I mean? And so people think I'm harsh, I think, in my space, but I think what happens is we set the bar way too low. You know what I mean? And that to me just is unacceptable. It's like, you have to hold yourself to a higher standard. And like, that's what we need to get our field to, you know what I mean? Because if you can't hold yourself to a higher standard, like, how are you going to like get your employees to do what you know what I mean? You want them to do. If they see you, like, you can't follow direction. So yeah, I think the ability to critically think, and to have time off the screen. The majority of my like really good work, I mean, I have 6 notebooks on my desk right now. And a lot of times I just, in like my remarkable tablet, which is like where all the magic happens, it's not connected to the internet. So it's like, I think sometimes dietitians, like, I think sometimes people crowdsource and they don't want to think through things, right? Like, and so I think the dietitians that can critically think and think for themselves, I think those are the ones that are successful. And we have a ton of them. Like, they're just like, I like sit here some days, like tears rolling down my face. I'm like, they're just so amazing. Like they get it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just love it. Like, just takes my breath away. But then there's the other half of the other 98% of my field that like, yeah, it's like they're out to lunch. You know what I mean? And I am concerned for them because I know what it's like to like operate a practice, because not only do I teach it, right? It's like I still see patients. I like run the practice. So it's like, I'm like, you are going to get eaten alive when you come on the inside, you know? So yeah. So I think the ability to critically think, I think it's been something that's lost in our field. And I think the ones that can and are able of doing it, like those are the ones that are successful. Yeah.
So, Amy, we've covered how you crack the insurance model, but now what I want to do is I want to pull back the curtains on what it actually takes to run your business,
Yeah.
the systems, the
Yeah.
structure, the team, because from the outside, it all
Yeah.
looks effortless, but I know there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. So, first things first, how do you handle credentialing for multiple practitioners? Like, do you do it yourself or do you outsource
Yeah.
it?
Yeah. So like when I didn't hire any administrative staff until 2019-ish. And so I had a pretty, you know what I mean? And the only reason why I hired somebody in 2019 was I was seeing 45 patients a week, and the billing part and running the practice wasn't hard, but that was kind of the stage where I knew I wanted to do, you know, business to business and start reimbursement dietitians. So I knew if I needed to, and so I only hired with an effort to add on an additional service. I don't think that I would have hired administrative staff unless I was going a different direction, because the cool part about working, you know, 3 to 5 jobs for the first decade of my life was that it forced me to have really efficient systems, right? And so when your systems are efficient and you like hold tight boundaries, the practice should run like clockwork, right? But I didn't like, so like I'll just give you like some examples. Like, because I was like working from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. most nights, I couldn't call and verify my patient's benefits. So I just created a script in a play by play, like, okay, like to my patients, like, and then I put it on my website. And then I said, hey guys, like, these are the questions you're going to ask because I don't have any time to do it. You know what I mean? And then we're going to have you sign off on this form that says you did it. And then we're going to take your credit card. So if you don't do it, then so, you know, so for in the beginning of my business, I was able to, I didn't know it at the time, right? I was able to create those systems that I didn't really need to hire administrative staff. So, you know, I started like in 2019 with like part-time help in the administrative realm, probably just 10 hours a week. You know what I mean? And even right now, full capacity, we have one social media manager, we have one office manager, and then we have, on any given day, it depends on who's on maternity, anywhere from 7 to 10 dietitians on the team. And so that's the staff. And so I would say, like, when I go and I meet with business coaches, you know, one of the first things they say to me is like, I've never seen a team leaner than yours. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, because most people will go to a business coach, they have employee issues or they have operation issues. I don't have those issues. You know what I mean? I don't have the normal issues that people have when it comes to scaling. And like I said, until last year, like, we had very low level of support. So we have like the administrative staff, you know, the social media manager, but I write all my content. And then we have somebody that manages the office. They do the credentialing. And so I'm a really firm believer in like playbooks. One of the things that Dan Martell, right, talks about is like, so I've been doing playbooks before, probably for the last like 6 or 7 years in my practice, where like, if I'm going to do a Medicare application, I'm just going to record myself doing it, right? And then I'm going to record myself doing it 3 times, and then you just go watch me how I do it. So it's like, it's easy to hand off. I think like one of the things that most practice owners don't do is like, they're not operators in their practice, right? So like, they don't do the thing that they're trying to teach. But for good or for bad, because like I couldn't afford anybody to do the thing in the beginning. Like I know, like when I'm working with people, it's like I do the thing. And so like for all the credentialing, like we have my one administrative team do that. And then he parlays for my practice. And then another line of reimbursement dietitian is we offer credentialing services for other dietitians. And so that's another $50,000 line of the business that we were able to add in April, because we taught somebody who was not at full capacity in our practice. Like, you know what I mean? He had downtime. So I said, do you want to learn how to do credentialing? He's like, sure. I'm like, I'll pay you more. So now like, he kind of, I in a, like probably like a corporation, like he job shares, but like, he's so good at credentialing, like he does it for everybody else. And the dietitians love him. So we're able to like really maximize. And I think that's one of the things that most dietitians and most practitioners don't do. They don't know what it should look like. And so most people run like bloated operations, right? They have like this big giant team, like nobody's doing shit. Like, and like the person that's like the owner of the practice, they don't know what they're supposed to be doing either. But like, so it's like, so when we were able to scale, like the first person we added was an administrative assistant. The second person we added was a social media manager. And then we're always actively trying to hire like full-time dietitians in the practice. So like, that's kind of the staff, like in the core in terms of what it looks like, but it's not like, we don't have like, that's the organizational structure. Like, you know what I mean? And then you make sure that like all the people on my team, like everybody at the end of the day, they send me an end of day report. And so it's like, this is what I did all day long. And so it's like, I know what it's like, because I was the practice manager for so many years, I know what my day looked like. Right. And so their day shouldn't look that much different. And then everybody does a scorecard. They have to like, I have them almost like the KPIs, they self-report, right? At the end of every week, everybody needs to send me their scorecard. And then there's metrics that are tied to the practice that are tied to their role, right? So everybody kind of knows what they're responsible for, because I think in most practices, like the people that you hire on your team, they want to win, but you have to show them what winning looks like. And so I have found by having like a scorecard, like they know what metrics they are in charge of, and they know what like their benchmarks are. So that's been those have been pieces that we have added, as I have gotten more. It's not even true. I can't even say that those are things that we've added as we've gotten more advanced. 99% of every single problem in a private practice, at least in my experience, while it may not be my fault, it is my problem, right? And so the only reason why we have these systems in place is not because I was smart. It was actually quite the opposite. It was like, if you can think of an area of anybody's private practice where like things went horribly wrong, like that is where I was able to put systems in place, right? And so it's like, you learn not necessarily because you're smarter than anybody. You learn because you've made more mistakes. And so then you put systems in place, and then the systems have to be managed, right? So I want to be very clear, is like, these things may sound like, more sophisticated than they really are. And they may sound like, oh my gosh, that's really smart. But like, they're only this way because I probably lost thousands of dollars of revenue, you know what I mean? Not having them in place. I want to be very clear, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like none of these things were probably in place 3 years ago. And so then as soon as like most private practice owners won't learn until they lose money, right? it's like until you hit that threshold, like you probably won't take any action. Yeah.
And on that note, if
Yeah.
someone listening is about to take on their first team member,
Yeah.
what back-end SOP or system would you say is a non-negotiable before they do?
Yeah, like I really like basic stuff like Asana, like, you know what I mean? Because I really believe in my heart of hearts that when you hire team members and you hire the right ones, like they want to win. And so like in Asana, why I love Asana is like you can create boards with like deadlines and due dates and things like that. And that way, like somebody can't say to you, well, I didn't know I needed to do that because it was outlined. I'm not a huge fan of SOPs proper. Like I really do more of like the videos and like this is how it should look. And then I also think I think probably the most important thing, and I think nobody has these things, the most important thing for a practice owner to have before they hire anybody to their team is like, what are your core values, right? Because by having strong established core values, when something doesn't go as planned, if your team members understand how to interpret the core value, they should know on some level how to act, right? And so, like, say for example, what my core value for my number one core value for my team and in my handbook is be a good fucking human. The second one is own your shit, and then the third one is like practice a culture of candor where you feel comfortable giving feedback. And so, for example, like if somebody owes us money, right? Like their insurance denied, or they're a cash-based patient, or they're receiving, they want to do metabolism testing, but they didn't pay us. Our core value is be a good fucking human. Like that $150 does not make or break my life, right? It doesn't pay my mortgage. So it gives us the lens on how do we have a conversation with that patient, in a heartfelt way that's kind, because like it doesn't, you know what I mean? And so a lot of times people like go super punitive. They're like, this person owes me money. Like I would say we go to that patient and we explain to them, like, this is the situation. Like, do you need to do a payment plan? So not to say that I don't think there's ever been a time when we haven't gotten our money, but that core value, when things do not line up, like allows us to know kind of like it's our North Star. So I would say, like, if the practice owner does not have core values, that would probably be the number one thing. And I think like SOPs, those things all sound fancy, but without core values to lead your team and to like use as guiding principles, like those SOPs like don't mean anything. So in terms of systems, like I'm a huge fan. We have an EMR that just manages like the day-to-day for the practice, the scheduling, the text reminders, the payments, the insurance payments. We can run reports, accounts receivable, aging reports, productivity reports. So like a basic EMR, and I would say on average, those are like, for a small team, it's probably like $100. For a bigger team, it might be $300 to $700 a month. So I think a basic EMR, and then some type of training platform. Like I said, we really use like Asana. And then because I use Kajabi for my coaching, on the dietitian side, I also use it on the training side when I'll do training videos. So like HIPAA training videos, documentation videos. So a lot of the information that I share with my coaching clients, like on the dietitian side, is stuff that I then go share with my dietitians on my team. It's almost like a meta, right? We're doing it in my practice. This is what we're doing. Let me teach you guys this. Okay, cool. I think the dietitians in my coaching program can also benefit from this. So I think that's, important as well. So I don't think you need like super systems. I think the most important thing is like knowing your core values and then knowing how you're going to measure success, and like making sure that everybody knows what that looks like.
So I've just got a quick question from
Yeah.
an actual practice owner, and
Yeah.
she asks, can you negotiate fees listed on your contracts with insurance companies?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And I actually think I'm pretty sure I definitely have a YouTube video on this, but the insurance companies are not going to negotiate with you out of the gate. And what I mean by that is like, you have to show to the insurance companies how you can make money, like how you save them money. And so if it goes back to kind of what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, most dietitians like do not believe in themselves. And so it's very hard for them to make a convincing statement to the insurance companies why they deserve more without just stating superficial things like, oh, I'm open on Saturdays, or oh, I offer telehealth, which is like things everybody do. And so in order to negotiate, like you have to show the insurance company a proven track record. And so, for example, in my practice, like we track metrics, like we track BMIs, waist circumferences, RMRs, insulin, hip to waist circumference. And so like we can go to the insurance companies and say, hey, like, let's just say it's like, we saw like 280 of your patients last month who had diabetes, or like, over the course of the last 3 months, like these are the outcomes we have gotten. And I think like most practitioners who are clinicians think more in terms of managing symptoms versus managing data. And so in order to negotiate, like I think in my experience, you have to have been with the insurance company at least 3 years minimum. You have to have like actual volume with your patients, right? Of their patients. Like if you're seeing like, like I said, if you're seeing like 15 patients a month, probably not going to be super important. And then you need to show them how you save them money, right? And so whether you have outcomes, whether you have, research from PubMed that says, like in my space, like I'm a diabetes educator, like, it's like the education piece, when we look at the research, like there's a certain dollar amount, that's associated with every person in the United States who has diabetes. Well, we're able to obviously mitigate that through medical nutrition therapy. So yes, you can negotiate it, but it's a lot trickier than people think, not because they're not capable of it. I think their expectations are different and they're not looking at it through the lens of the insurance company. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Okay.
All right. So, Amy, what I want to do is I want to play a quick game called Rate That Move. The way it works is that I'm going to list out a bunch of common decisions that practitioners make when building an insurance-based practice.
I love it.
And then if you could just rate each one out of 10, no explanations, just your score.
Okay.
So it's pretty quick fire,
yes,
right?
I love it. I'm ready.
All right. Only accepting one insurance provider to start with.
2.
Outsourcing billing before understanding it yourself.
Can I rate it as 0? 1.
Yep.
1.
1. Being generous.
Yes, exactly.
Hiring an admin before hiring another dietitian.
I'm going to say 6.
Building out systems before hiring your first team member.
I'm going to go 5.
Doing your own credentialing instead of hiring help.
I'm going to say 9.
Taking every patient that calls, regardless of fit.
Depending upon the stage in your business, that could be a 9. Like you need to, like you probably have to do shit you don't want to do. I know I'm not supposed to explain. Or it could be like, it could be a 4, like it could be a distraction if you're more advanced.
Using Google Sheets to manage patient flow and billing.
0, 1.
Investing in EHR and practice management software early on.
10. And I didn't do that in the beginning. I'm just saying a 10 too, because I want to be clear, I didn't do it.
Training your registered dietitians in insurance billing in-house.
10.
Accepting lower reimbursements just to increase volume.
7.
Waiting until you're fully booked before hiring help.
6.
Starting a group program alongside one-to-one patient care.
11.
And then the last one for this game, and maybe the most important, thinking like a CEO instead of just a clinician.
12.
There we go. Perfect. Amy, I want to quickly transition into social media. Let's talk about it quickly. A lot
Yes.
of practitioners are chasing views, they're chasing likes, they're after followers, but truth be told, that doesn't pay the bills, and
Yeah,
I'm sure you're fully aware of this.
for sure.
So how are you using social media to grow your brand?
Yeah, I think my mentality has always been really different. I think than most people is that my goal with social media was always to serve first, sell second. And it's always been kind of how I've showed up. And I look at social media as, so I am very insecure. Like I just don't like to be on camera. Like I don't like, people probably don't know. Like I'm very much like an introvert, as much, you know what I mean? Like it's like if I can be home, like, yeah, it's like this is not my thing. But the way that I look at it as somebody who kind of did everything backwards was I show up on social media not for me but for my clients, right? And so I have made the mistakes and I have an important message I need to say and I need to pump myself up every day to say, Amy, this is not about you. So I think like that's how it's kind of that concept of like I'm afraid every day when I show up on social media. But I do it anyway because I know that it's being selfish. And if I'm not able to see it through that realm, then I'm a big pussy and I wouldn't show up because it's just like it's uncomfortable. It's like not. I'll just give you like an example. Like my husband is like my biggest fan. He's my biggest cheerleader, and like I would not be where I was without him. With that being said, he knows that if he wants to aggravate me, he like listen to my stories. Like he loves my story and I cannot stand hearing myself. And I will slam the door. And like he's not even doing it to annoy me. He's doing it cuz he genuinely is just a fan. And so it's so hard for me to hear myself. It's so hard for me to see myself. And so I think that I struggle with the same stuff that every content creator struggles with. But I have to say to myself, it's not about you, Amy. Stop being such a wimp. Just show up because what you have to say is important. And so I've always kind of showed up with that sense to serve first. I don't even think I had a product to sell for reimbursement dietitian probably for like 12 months. Like I didn't like it wasn't like create the product, sell the shit. It was like create the trust, hook people up with information that they wouldn't already have. So I think like the way that I approach it is a little bit different. So I don't know if my responses are always the same, but I think for anybody listening to this, like I don't think anybody likes being on camera. Like, you know what I mean? It's awful. It's like awful. That's why I say to my husband, like, I don't need to hear myself. Like all I like, you know what I mean? I'm good. Or like I was on a trip with my friend in Dubai. One of my girlfriends who's a dietitian, we travel and we go to all of these conferences and she's like, do you want me to take your picture in front of like the Dubai, like, you know, and I'm like, you never need to take my picture in front of anything by myself ever. Like I never need any more single pictures. You know what I mean? Like it's so crazy to me. Like you want to take a picture with me, like let's do a selfie, but like I need more pictures of myself. Like I need a hole in my head. So yeah, it's so awkward and like so uncomfortable. Yeah. So like I think people just need to show up when they like I think the best thing for people to do is like show up and just like serve, like give away your best shit. Yeah, for free. Yeah.
And do you think if I said to you, Amy, without social media, do you believe that you would have been able to have the same influence, impact, and also like let's stay away from money.
Yeah.
Would you say that you'd be able to have the same impact and influence that you've had without social media?
Great question. So remember, for my private practice side, we do no social media. So like my private practice has grown 100% organically. And so yes, I do think on the private practice side, as somebody who does not have a social media presence, I do think like the clinical aspect does not involve social media. I do not believe I would be able to have the same impact without social media because people don't know what they don't know, right? And so I think that as uncomfortable as Instagram is for me, that's my main channel. And the majority of the information we create is educational. And so I do really believe. With that being said, you know, like I participate and volunteer in any setting I possibly can. You know what I mean? And so, you know, so it's like today I have like 2 or 3 board meetings where I give information, you know what I mean? And so I think I would always be volunteering, you know what I mean, behind the scenes. I think social media just makes it what I'm doing behind the scenes is, you know, so no, I do not think without social media I would have the brand that I have ever. No. Which is so crazy to me because it's like I didn't have an Instagram account until 2020. You know what I mean? I didn't even have Facebook on my phone because I thought it was a distraction. Like I found it so annoying. And I still don't get notifications, but yeah, so coming from somebody who was not like a consumer of social media, it is the reason why my brand is successful. Yes.
So on that note of social media and Instagram, you've quite clearly built something that so many dietitians wish existed when they were starting
Yeah.
out. So Amy, can you walk us through what the reimbursement dietitian actually offers and who it's
Yeah.
for?
Sure. So the reimbursement dietitian, like the tagline is, I help dietitians get credentialed, build the shit out of insurance, and make the money they deserve. And so it encompasses like all aspects of reimbursement. And so my main platform is actually, so I am of the belief that in the world of marketing, everything is on a continuum. And so there's always going to be, whether you are a practitioner who is cash based or there is a practitioner who is insurance based, like there's always going to be a continuum of how people consume your services. And there's going to be people that can't afford your services. And so I have really gone out of my way to make sure that it is front loaded. So we spend the majority of our time at Reimbursement Dietitian creating blogs, YouTube videos, you know, step-by-step free stuff. And so on the bottom level of Reimbursement Dietitian, guess Russell Brunson would say on the top of the funnel, it's a lot of free information. Then we have like a cheat sheet that, you know, we go into cheat sheets, starter packs and things like that. Those are kind of low level. Those are like $150. And then we go into reimbursement coaching. And so I sell a 6-month coaching program for dietitians. And some dietitians think, I just got an email right before we started to record, and she was like, well, your team already credentialed me. I don't think I need X, Y, and Z within your coaching program. And it's always hard for me to laugh because you nailed it. I created a program that I wish I had. And so she's like, do you have a 3-month version of it? And I was like, dude, you need like 30 years of this. And I don't even say that to be a jerk. Like, you know what I mean? I don't like, I say that I say it from a place of love, is that like 3 months, like, you know, and so then after you graduate from my 6-month coaching program, I have a membership. And so that's more of like the graduate university side, where we have hiring dietitian, where we teach them how to do a la carte services. You know, how we hire, you know, it's like they get all my playbooks for hiring administrative assistants, all my SOPs. And so, you know, I think like the goal is that I can serve dietitians on every level, you know, the beginning, the middle, and then the end, where we have dietitians. And why I say that 3 months, I was laughing. We have people that started in my coaching program in 2020 when I first launched it, who are still in the membership. And these are dietitians that are making 200, 300, 400, 500. So it's like, why I always laugh when somebody who's totally new, who's never done that, is like, give me your cheapest product. When people say to me, I think I only need 3 months of your time. Like, it's like, I don't even know if I should I want to like cry, because I'm like, oh, I needed like 15 years. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still not sure what I'm doing some days. Yeah, so that's kind of the product suite that we offer. And so I've really tried to create like because I'm somebody who has been in each one of those stages, I really create products based on what dietitians tell me that they need. And so the way that the membership was born is that I used to run my program as a cohort. And so like we'd launch like every, you know, once a quarter. And then the dietitians that finished the first cohort 8 of the 10 dietitians that finished the first cohort in 2020 are still in the membership, because like they said to me when they got to the end of it, like, we love this. What else can you do? And I was like, dude, I don't know, but like, what do you want? And so I think the best way to know what you want to create is to ask the people that you're serving. They're like, how about this? I was like, that's amazing. And so we have like almost all of the founding dietitians still in there. So I think most creators will create things that they think that they want, and that's all, you know what I mean? But they don't really realize that like they have like people that will tell you what they want. You know what I mean? If people like you and they trust you, they want to work with you. They just want you to do different shit. So, yeah, so that's kind of what we offer. And I would say on average, we have 200 dietitians in the membership. And then usually in the coaching program, probably about 150 per year will enroll, you know? So it's amazing. Like I love it. I just love it. Yeah. Best part of my day.
Yes, of course. And once these dietitians graduate from the 6-month program and join the membership, what kind of results are they starting to see?
Yeah, I think like probably the first thing they get is confidence, right? Because like I think what's really interesting is what I see in my coaching clients, and I see it in myself as well, is that when you hire somebody and you pay somebody money, sometimes like, you know, a lot of times people know what they're supposed to do, like they just may not be doing it, or they need reinforcement. So like, for example, I might meet with my attorney. He's $1,000 an hour. The first question he asked me at the start of every call is, what questions are you going to ask me, Amy, that you're pretending not to know the answers to? And so like, why I think that's significant is that sometimes people are looking for like these tangible deliveries, which we definitely get in the coaching program. But I think what they also don't realize is that their ability to be successful is going to start from their ability to be confident, right? And so it's like, sometimes when these dietitians are asking questions in these forums, I'm just reinforcing what they already know, which then builds confidence. And so, you know, like I said, like I think like most of these dietitians, like I think it's obviously, as you know, very nuanced. But once they get to probably like they graduate out of my program, probably like within 8 to 12 months, like most of them are full time, because like they don't have to invent any of the systems, right? So it's like if that is their goal to be full time, they have somebody who's literally giving them the keys to the kingdom. Like, right. Like, it's like, you think of something you might have needed in your practice, like somebody already gave it to you and it's like the 10.0 version of it. Right. And so it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, so, I mean, they're able to scale that much faster. And it's like, it is mind blowing as somebody who thought I scaled pretty quickly. I mean, these dietitians, like, you know, it's like they're hiring one dietitian after another. You know what I mean? It's so cool. Like it is just, oh, I just love it. I just love it. It just like lights, it's just to watch other, like I always say, like these dietitians in my coaching programs, like they should lap me 100 times. Like if I'm making 7 figures, like they should, like, you know what I mean? Because I didn't have me, and they're so smart. Like I just love them. But yeah, like they just get like, for the dietitians that do what I ask of them, like it's like they're like probably by the 12th month, like they're full time, they're ready to scale, they're ready, you know what I mean? And so it's like, but they don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like it's like even I have a whole hiring course, a full hiring course that I work with my attorney on, and I hired a human resources company. And so it's like, you know what I mean? It walks you from everything from offer letters to like firing. And it's like, yeah, it's crazy. But like the only reason why I can teach it is that I had to learn it. So yeah, so it's like, there's no level that I don't think that we have not seen. And I want these dietitians to like lap the shit out of me. Like they're amazing. Yeah. So they get everything that they put into it. And then in the coaching program, like I offer like a money back guarantee. So it's like if they get in 30 days and they don't love it. And then I also offer a whole 24-hour trial. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, because people will say to me like I don't know if it's really going to be that good. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Like, yeah, check it out. Like, you know what I mean? And nobody's ever asked for their money back yet. Yeah. Yeah. So it's great. Yeah. Like, so they're just able to scale that much faster because even when they make mistakes, like I can tell them, okay, cool, you're here. Okay. Like because people will jump on a call with me. I'll say, they're like, I think I need to do this. I'm like, no. Like, we're not doing this. This is what we're doing. And so it's like sometimes the concept of like what their next step is in their head is very different than what they actually need to be doing. Yeah.
Where can people find you, follow along, and really take that next step if they want to work with you?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm super big with free content. So it's like my team and I spend the majority of our time. So obviously reimbursement. So on Instagram at reimbursement_dietitian. We have a YouTube channel where we release new videos every week. That's actually a really great spot because the questions that I answer on the YouTube are questions that dietitians ask me. And so all I do is just keep a list. So they're not like things that I want to talk about. They're things that dietitians are asking me about. So YouTube, Instagram, and then we have more free resources on Reimbursement Dietitian. So reimbursementdietitian.com. And then if you just want help with hiring, I have a whole other separate website called Hiring Dietitian as well. So like my goal is just for people to get as much information as they possibly can. And so when they need to hire me for coaching, I can really help them high level. Like it's like they got the base, because people will say to me, well, I'm credentialed already. I'm like, you sure as shit should be, because like the opt-in on my website is like, it walks you through how to do it. So it's like, like that's amazing. I'm glad you also followed directions, but like, you don't really get a gold star for that. Like, you know what I mean? So like, so I think like tons of free resources. And then, like I said, I work application only because like we screen pretty rigorously in terms of who comes in and who doesn't. We say no to more dietitians than we do accept into the program, not because we don't like love them. We just don't like you asked a really good question. Like there's certain characteristics that I know dietitians are going to be successful with. And like, if I do not feel they have those, I don't want their money. Like, I don't want to sell them a bag of shit that I can't deliver on if their mindset isn't in there. So, but yeah. And then I do it, like I said, I do like free talks for universities. So if you're a university listening, I'm always happy to come to your university or do a virtual talk, because I feel like we just have to have more conversations like this, because most people don't know what they don't know. Yeah.
Perfect. So last things, finally, what I want to do is I just want to wrap up with a quick this or that game. Just quick, it's about 5-6 quick fire questions.
Love it.
And then we'll wrap things up. All right.
Sure.
Perfect. So scaling to 8 figures or never opening your inbox again?
Scaling to 8 figures.
$5,000 claim denied, or someone DMs you, can I pick your brain real quick?
Which one I want or which one I don't want?
Which one you want?
Oh, $5,000 denied claim.
Denied claim with no reason, or your VA books 2 clients for the same time slot?
Claim denied for no reason, because I probably can figure it out. Yeah.
All your claims get instantly approved, or your clients stop canceling forever?
Clients stop canceling forever.
Second last one. Being forced to fax in 2025, or being forced to handwrite SOP notes with a feather quill?
Oh my gosh. Fax in 2025. Yeah.
And then finally, being rich or being respected by insurance companies?
Being rich. The insurance companies respect anybody.
There we go. Amy, thank you. That was gold. Seriously, I think every practitioner listening just had a dozen mindset shifts, a few strategy breakthroughs, and probably a couple good laughs too. So thank you for pulling back the curtains and sharing so openly. It's clear to see why so many dietitians look to you for guidance.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. And then if someone's listening and wants to connect with you, join your program, or just stay in your world, once again, what's the best platform to find you?
Yeah, Instagram. Yeah, we do tons of, every single day I do a story, a post. And then something funny that's, something ridiculous that probably went wrong in my day. So yeah, reimbursement dietitian on Instagram.
Perfect. And I'll share the links to all of Amy's socials below if anyone wants them. Amy, thanks again for being here. And to everyone listening, don't just consume this, go build with it. And we'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you for coming on, Amy.
Thank
Appreciate
you
it.
very much. Have a great day. Thanks for all your